Hello and welcome to the Cash Flow CFO podcast. I am your host, Andrea Jenson. And today I'm very excited because I am joined by Marla Reynolds, who is one of our amazing CFOs on our team. Hi, Marla.
Hi, Andrea. Thank you for having me.
Yes, you're welcome. Thanks so much for being here and sharing some of your wisdom and knowledge with our listeners. Today is a very, very important conversation for us to have in our CFO Coffee Talk series because we are talking about budgets. And as we move into the new year, it's important for business owners to take a little bit of time out of their busy schedule to sit down and take a little bit of inventory and decide, what were some of the things that really worked this past year and what are we looking at as we move into the new year? So Marla, what are some of the things that you do with your clients when you start to have this budget conversation? What are some of the questions that you ask them to kind of prime them to start thinking about what they want to achieve fiscally for the next financial year?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I usually start the planning process in the last quarter of the current year, and we start having those real high-level conversations about revenue goals and any kind of major changes coming down the pike. Are we, hiring more staff? Are we thinking about opening another division? All of that very high level. Let's punch some of those numbers, see what we would like to achieve from some of those major milestones that we're thinking about for next year. So that's where we will begin the process. And then further down the line, once we've established some of that, I'll generally put together a 12-month budget for them based on their 2022 performance, right? And we're looking at fixed expenses versus variable expenses. Your variable expenses being those that contribute to revenue generating activities, correct? Your fixed expenses are generally your general and administrative things such as dues and subscriptions would be fixed, anything along those lines. And then we're planning direct labor budgets and indirect labor budgets, two really important components of your budget, because generally those are some of your bigger expenses in our service-based businesses.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for sharing that. That's great information. And I think that for our listeners out there who are starting to put these pieces of the puzzle together and looking forward to what's in store for them for next year, it's important to take some time to sit down and really think these things through, because we know that without a clear end goal, you're just spinning your wheels and you really aren't getting that traction that you can achieve if you have this plan in place. And so really when we say budget, I think some business owners get a little bit squeamish and they're like, ooh, I don't want that. I don't, that's too much stress to think about. But it's just like, if you were going to be driving your car and you're driving from destination A to destination B, if you don't have a roadmap, you're going to end up who knows where, right? We always joke, I'm in San Diego, not too far away from the Mexican border. And it's like, well, if you're not, having a map where you could end up in a whole nother country, very easily from where I'm at. So I think it's important for business owners, to sit down and plan this out, right?
Yeah, that's a really great analogy. And absolutely, I think planning, I always say to my clients, if this is let's talk about what they want to get from their business for their personal wealth, right? What do you want the business, which is your investment, to return to you, the owner? So if we're going to get to that goal, this is how it all fits together. And this is the roadmap that we need to follow. And I do think they are entrepreneurs or visionaries. and they don't want to get weighed down in the details, but that's, why they have us to really help take that vision and create their financial roadmap, a solid financial roadmap that we can then help them manage and monitor. And really, the greatest thing of all about a budget is you should always know where you stand at the end of every month, performance-wise, cash-wise, cash being the almighty important piece, as long as we're following that budget.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. That's a really important thing you said there too, Marla. And I want to just highlight that a little bit more, is that for entrepreneurs, your business is an asset that is generally your biggest wealth creation asset. And so if you're not planning and looking at budget versus actual and making sure that, it's one thing to sit down and create this beautiful vision and this beautiful roadmap to your financial goals, but then it's a tool, right? It's a tool for you to use every single month. What happened compared to what I had wanted to happen? And you're just using it to gauge and to monitor and adjust, and helps you to make spending decisions in your business as your business is growing. And, we know that going into this economy, right, there's a little bit of uncertainty that's, facing business owners right now. And so having this type of a tool, Marla, what does that help them to have, besides just peace of mind, right? That they know what they're trying to achieve. What else does it help them to do, as things might get a little bit turbulent?
Yeah. As things get turbulent, we often find ourselves having to make decisions around staffing, whether we should be hiring more people at this point in time, whether we are looking at, do we need to establish some kind of a line of credit to protect us in times of a shortfall in revenue? Our budgets really play a key role in that type of planning. And to elaborate a little bit on the planning piece, we will take a budget and we'll set it and we'll establish that as our guideline for the forthcoming year. But I tell my business owners, no fear. That doesn't mean we can't make changes, because we all know that as we are building the plane, we are flying it, and things need to happen. So what we also do is a method called budget to actual forecasting, where we will pull in every month's performance, and then we'll create a forecast to the end of the year that says, okay, this is what has happened in previous months. This is what we're budgeting for the upcoming months based on any changes we've had to incorporate. And again, we can anticipate where we're going to be and what adjustments we need to make depending on those results, right? So if we see at the end of the year that we're not quite making our profit goals, then we understand that we need to either possibly reduce expenses, or we need to bring in more qualified leads and generate more revenue.
Yeah, absolutely. And it really is just that. It's a tool to help you say, here's where we're at, here's where I want to be. How do I close the gap? And I think for the business owners that we have the privilege to work with, I think they like that challenge, right? It's a good for the visionaries and the entrepreneurs out there that go, oh, okay, I have this little sprint that I now have to do, but at least I know what I need to accomplish to be able to stay on track to hit my financial goals that I've set out for the year. And I think that in itself, that piece of information is so very valuable for them.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's like you said too, it becomes a competition with themselves, right? To see, how are we tracking towards our goals? Did I hit my budget numbers? And if I didn't hit my budget numbers, why didn't I hit the budget numbers? So there's just so much useful information that comes from creating a budget and implementing it prior to. And we try to get all budgets done by the end of the year. so we can start off the new year fresh and ready to go, and like you said earlier, have that peace of mind.
Absolutely. So if some of our listeners out there are wondering, well, how do I get started by putting together a budget for next year? What pieces of information or tips would you recommend them doing?
Yeah, the first thing I would do is look at your historical financial data from this past year. That's really going to be your baseline. And one of the other pieces that I'm working on during that last quarter of the year is a deep dive into their expenses, right? And we look at, what services are we currently paying for? Do we still need them for the next year? Maybe we need to try some different services. We're really analyzing line by line all of those expenses. We're also looking at your cost of sales, right? And where do those numbers? We generally tell our clients that 50%, 45% is a good place to live in terms of cost of sales. So you really want to be mindful of that when you start thinking about your budget. And yeah, I would start with the historical data, like I said, for the prior months, and you can build out your base, and then you can make adjustments to each one of those line items.
Yeah, absolutely. So when you have that base, then from there, you can also add in, what do you anticipate as the growth that you expect to see in the future year, and layer that in and see, okay, well, what is it going to cost me to support these sales? So then that will increase your cost of sales. And then, can you keep your G&A, your general and administrative expenses, flat? Do they need to increase as you add more volume into your revenue? And then, your marketing, that's a really big one too, is it to understand what is your customer acquisition cost, so that you can set how many leads you need, monitoring your sales conversion rate, and then you'll be well on your way to hitting your revenue goals. So yeah, I think in addition to what Marla said, if you have good, solid financial data, that right there is key. So Marla, who on a business owner's financial team would be the person to put together a budget if maybe they don't have a CFO? What would you recommend?
I guess I would recommend, are we asking if they have a bookkeeper? Do they have a bookkeeper?
Yeah. Well, I would imagine that all the business owners listening would have at least a bookkeeper in place.
At least a bookkeeper.
Yeah. And if they don't have a CFO, maybe, what would be something that if their bookkeeper doesn't have the skill set to do it, is there any tools that they could do it on their own or give it to a bookkeeper to do?
I think a bookkeeper is going to be most intimate with your financial data, and I think they are able to pull the right reports to help create that. We generally take the QuickBooks reports and export those to Excel. And Excel, I think most people know how to use Excel nowadays. It's pretty straightforward, and you can have it in a workable format so that you can go in and make adjustments, like Andrea said, and establish a growth line, and look at, based on that percentage growth, that is where you would want to look at, okay, which of my expenses are going to need to grow with that revenue growth, and which of those expenses are going to stay flat. And that's where you're going to make your money. If you can manage to contain those fixed costs, still growing your revenue, and the variable costs grow with that, you'll just constantly be adding to your bottom line, those dollars.
Yeah. Thanks, Marla. That's a great starting place, right? And for those business owners that are listening that want some help putting together a budget for next year, our team can definitely support you with that as well. But if that's not something that you're ready to look into, have whoever you have on your team, have them be putting together some form of data for you so that you, the business owner, have a financial roadmap. And at least it's a baseline, right, for you to know as you're going into next year. It's not just haphazardly. You have a plan in place, and really, we see this all the time with our clients that are just growing their business like crazy. It's because they have this plan in place, and it's kind of like, when you go bowling with your kids, they've got the little rails that pop up in the gutters, right? So you have like these guidelines, right, to stay within a little bit, and it helps you visualize, what it's going to take to grow your business. Because that's something else that we see a lot too, is that, as visionaries, business owners, right, we think, oh, I want to double, I want to triple, I want to all these things, and I want it, last week we should have done that. But when you really sit down and put this plan in place, it helps you to identify, oh, okay, well, if we're going to, grow our revenue by 30%, gosh, I think I'm going to need to hire some more support staff. Or it's just going to really open up your eyes to, you can achieve those growth goals that you have in place. But in order to make it a nice, smooth ride, you need to understand what are the components that you're also going to need to be growing, or systems or processes you need to either invest in to have built out to support the growth, or also the team, right? That's a big one. All right.
100%.
Yeah. Thanks, Marla. I think that all this info is so helpful for all of our listeners and the business owners out there. Is there any other tips or any thing you'd like to share with them before we wrap up?
Yeah, don't be scared of a budget. It's just a simple, everyday, useful tool that sometimes it's scary to even just start. Just start with those that data you already have, and just work from that, and don't worry about getting it right the first pass. You've got plenty of time to make adjustments and set your plans in motion.
Absolutely. And reach out and find help. If you need help putting it together, find somebody that can help you, or reach out to us. This is what we do for fun. We love creating budgets. A little bit of our nerdiness coming through, and we absolutely embrace that and love it. So, all right. Well, thank you so much, Marla. I really appreciate you taking some time to chat with me today and talk about budgets. Yeah, perfect.
You're welcome. Thanks again.
Yeah, thank you. And for all our listeners out there, if you would like help putting together your budget, check the link below and reach out, because we really are good and love doing this. So thank you so much, and have a great day.